The word Buddha is not somebody's name. It's rather a title for somebody who's awakened. So such exemplary person is Shakyamuni. Around 25 centuries ago, he was born, he was awakened, taught and transformed people, and then died. So in that context, the Buddha, Shakyamuni, was a person who had his finite lifespan. But in the Lotus Sutra chapter 16, the lifespan of the eternal Tathagata, the Buddha Shakyamuni reveals that his death is not truly death. It's because he's been actually around since the infinite past and will continue to be so to the infinite future. So that's the notion of the eternal life of the Buddha. So in the Lotus Sutra, the Buddha's life is not finite, but rather it is infinite eternal life. But what is the eternal life of the Buddha? Today, we will consider this by looking into thoughts of Nikkyo Niwano, founder of Richa Kosei-kai, engaged Buddhist movement centered in Tokyo. If you want to know more about Richa Kosei-kai, please check out their website, rk-world.org, and let me attach a link below. And you can also find information about Nikkyo Niwano as well. So before we start, thank you all for your support of this channel, and please by all means hit the subscribe button below, and please leave your comments and questions below as well. I believe the new knowledge emerges out of our conversation with you. Okay, now let's get back to the topic of the eternal life of the Buddha. So one important thing to know is that a few centuries after Shakyamuni's death as a person, so-called Mahayana Buddhist movement started to arise. And they expanded the meaning of the Buddha and saw that even after his death, Buddha still continues to be present in our world in many different forms. So in a nutshell, the concept of the eternal life of the Buddha arose in this broader historical context. So with that in mind, now let us look at what Nikkyo Niwano is saying about the eternal life of the Buddha. So in his 10-volume commentary to the Lotus Sutra, Niwano says that eternal Buddha is thusness, the supreme truth itself. For this very reason, it can appear in any form. The power that sustains everything, the fundamental truth of all things and all beings, so it can appear in any form. It exists inside us, outside us, everywhere. It provides life to all beings. What is he saying here? He seems to be saying two complementary aspects of the eternal life of the Buddha. So it seems to me that he's talking about relationship between one and many, sameness and difference, or in other words, relationship between something universally shared and particular ways in which that universality is expressed. So for Niwano, it seems seeing both oneness and difference at the same time seems to be really key to understanding the truth, eternal life of the Buddha. But how can we think about it? So perhaps another Buddhist terminology for the eternal life of the Buddha is Buddha nature. Let's ponder upon that possibility. In that case, this relationship between one and many will be the oneness of the Buddha nature and its many expressions. In other words, this is a relationship between the equality of the Buddha nature and each and distinct expression of this universal Buddha nature. With this in mind, perhaps then we can interpret and say Niwano's take of the eternal life of the Buddha is the following. The supreme truth of the universal Buddha nature is the power that provides life to all beings. That is the one eternal great life that provides lives to many. This truth is inside us, outside us, and is everywhere. But perhaps this is what he's getting at. What do you think about this? I'm not sure though. Let's pause it this for a second and try to move on further on. What kind of the relationship between one and many is really going on here? So does oneness subsume many? And so there's a hierarchy between one and many? or that's the one universal Buddha nature, kind of overpower and control all of the activities of many sentient beings? That probably is not the case, because it's seeing one and many as separate from each other. For Niwano, rather, it seems that eternal life of the Buddha is never ever separate from any of our lives. So, the one eternal life is an aspect of our many finite lives. So that would mean that our lives are eternal. So wherever you go, whatever you do, you are expressing this eternal life of the Buddha. You cannot really get away from it. So it's an immanent conception of the Buddha nature, qua the eternal life of the Buddha. The relationship between one and many is perhaps like the relationship between water and waves. So water is one, and it creates many different waves, right? So, but there's no water apart from waves, or it's vice versa. There's no waves apart from water. Let's imagine if you go to see a lake or something, you're seeing the oneness of water and difference of waves at the same time. Or right, you're actually seeing the oneness between the oneness of the water and the difference of waves at the same time. So that oneness then is the oneness of oneness and difference. That's something eternal life of the Buddha, qua Buddha nature, may be getting at. But if that is the case, but saying that water and waves are separate really doesn't make sense, right? Because water of the lake is actually another way of talking about the waves. And conversely, saying waves is an alternate way of talking about the lake water. So there are two different ways of talking about the same one thing, but with the difference of the focus or emphasis. In the context of the Lotus Sutra, this seems to be the relationship between one and many, one vehicle and three vehicles, truth and skillful means, extraordinary eternal life of the Buddha, and our ordinary lives, and the universally shared Buddha nature and defilements of unenlightened sentient beings like us. But as waves are aspects of water, our ordinary life is always already an aspect of the extraordinary eternal life of the Buddha. So the oneness of the Buddha nature, the eternal life of the Buddha, does not overpower the lives of sentient beings at all, but rather it reveals the true characteristic of our finite lives. By virtue of being infinite, the eternal life of the Buddha elevates the status of all finite sentient beings. In that sense, we are non-finite. The eternal life of the Buddha is compassionate in the sense that it reveals the reality about our lives. Isn't it pretty much uplifting? I think that's what Nikkyo Niwano is getting at. But what do you think about this? Please do leave your comments and questions below.